A pulse oximeter on your finger reads 97%. Your doctor says you're fine. But right now, inside your thigh muscles, your brain tissue, your gut lining, your cells are gasping for oxygen they never receive. In a 2022 study from Frontiers in Physiology, researchers measured actual oxygen levels inside the muscles of adults over 65 and found tissue saturation was 38% lower than in younger adults. Same blood, same lungs, drastically different delivery. That 97% on your fingertip is telling you a story, and it is leaving out the most important chapter. Here is what most people believe. They believe that blood oxygen saturation, that number on the pulse oximeter, tells them whether their cells are getting enough oxygen. Doctors reinforce this. Hospitals reinforce this. That little glowing clip becomes the final word. If it reads 95 to 99, you are healthy. Case closed. That belief is dangerously incomplete. A pulse oximeter measures one thing. It measures how much of your hemoglobin, the protein inside your red blood cells, is currently bound to oxygen molecules. That is, arterial saturation. It tells you what's happening inside your large blood vessels. It says nothing, absolutely nothing, about what happens after that blood leaves your arteries. It says nothing about whether oxygen actually crosses from your smallest capillaries into the tissue. It says nothing about whether your mitochondria, the structures inside each cell that use oxygen to produce energy, are actually receiving and processing that oxygen. Think of it this way. Imagine a delivery truck loaded with packages. A GPS tracker confirms the truck is full and on the highway. That is your pulse oximeter. It confirms the truck is loaded. But what if the local roads to your house are washed out? What if the driver can't find your address? What if your front door is sealed shut? The packages never arrive. The GPS still says truck full. Your oximeter still says 97%. The difference between oxygen in your arteries and oxygen in your tissues is not a small technical distinction. It is the gap where fatigue lives, where brain fog forms, where muscle weakness takes root in your 60s and 70s for reasons no standard blood test will ever catch. But the real question is how this gap forms and why your body gets worse at closing it with every decade after 50. To understand why your cells can be starving while your blood looks fully loaded, you need to understand something a Danish physiologist figured out 120 years ago. In 1904, Christian Bohr, father of Nobel physicist Niels Bohr, published a paper in Copenhagen that changed respiratory science permanently. He discovered that hemoglobin does not just carry oxygen, it decides when to release it. And the trigger for that release is carbon dioxide. Here is how it works. Your red blood cells pick up oxygen in your lungs. Hemoglobin grabs those oxygen molecules and holds them tightly. When those red blood cells travel to a tissue that is working hard, a muscle contracting, a brain region firing, that tissue produces carbon dioxide as waste. The carbon dioxide lowers the local pH. It makes the environment slightly more acidic, and that acidity causes hemoglobin to change shape, physically. The protein shifts from what biochemists call the relaxed form to the taut form. In the taut form, hemoglobin's grip on oxygen weakens. It lets go. Oxygen floods into the tissue. This is the Bohr effect. It is elegant, it is automatic, and in your body right now it may be failing. Here is why. The Bohr effect depends on carbon dioxide being present in your tissues at the right concentration. If carbon dioxide levels are too low, hemoglobin never gets the signal to release oxygen. It holds on. Your blood passes through capillaries fully loaded and comes back still carrying oxygen your cells never received. What drives carbon dioxide too low? Breathing patterns. Specifically, chronic overbreathing, shallow, rapid, upper chest breathing that has become epidemic in sedentary adults over 50. When you breathe faster than your metabolism requires, you exhale too much carbon dioxide. Your blood CO2 drops. The pH shifts alkaline, and hemoglobin tightens its grip on oxygen. A 2020 study published in the journal PMC reported that diaphragm strength in elderly adults decreases by 25 to 41% compared to younger populations. When your diaphragm weakens, your breathing shifts from deep, slow belly breathing to shallow, fast chest breathing. You move air in and out rapidly. You lose carbon dioxide. And your hemoglobin, swimming through your capillaries at a reading of 97%, refuses to let go of what your cells are begging for. Your blood is full, your tissues are empty. But this is only half the story. Because even if your hemoglobin releases oxygen perfectly, there is a second system that is failing, and almost no doctor is testing for it. The oxygen released by your hemoglobin does not teleport into your cells. It has to physically cross a barrier. It has to move from inside a capillary, one of those microscopically small blood vessels, thinner than a human hair, through the capillary wall, through a tiny gap of interstitial fluid, and into the cell membrane. That crossing depends entirely on one thing: how many capillaries you have and how close they are to your cells. This is where aging attacks you in a way no pulse oximeter will ever detect. Your body contains roughly 40 billion capillaries. Laid end to end, they would wrap around the earth twice. In your muscles, your brain, your kidneys, your skin, capillaries form a dense mesh that brings oxygen within microns of every living cell. When you were 30, this network was thick. Every muscle fiber had capillaries clustered around it like scaffolding. By 65, that scaffolding is collapsing. The term is capillary rarefaction. It means your body is losing capillaries, not because of injury, not because of disease, because of disuse, chronic low-grade inflammation, and the slow breakdown of the signals that keep capillaries alive. A 2014 study from Maastricht University, published in the Journal of Applied Physiology by researchers Gruen, Hamer, and Snyders, measured capillary density in the muscles of older adults. They found that skeletal muscle capillary density was significantly lower in older adults compared to young controls. The same group found that microvascular function, the ability of those remaining capillaries to actually respond to oxygen demand, was also compromised. If you have ever woken up in the morning with stiff legs, aching feet, or hands that feel cold, no matter the room temperature, this is part of what is happening. Your tissues have fewer supply lines. The oxygen your blood carries has fewer delivery points. Distance between capillary and cell increases, and oxygen, which diffuses passively, it does not swim, it does not push, it simply spreads from high concentration to low, loses its ability to reach the cells that need it. Imagine a sprinkler system in a garden. When you were young, there was a sprinkler head every 3 feet. Every plant got water. Now, half the sprinkler heads are gone. The water pressure is the same. The total water in the system is the same, but the plants at the edges are dying of thirst. Your pulse oximeter measures the water pressure. It cannot see the missing sprinkler heads. If this is clicking for you, if you are starting to see why that 97% number has been giving you false comfort, subscribe now. Because in the next section, I am going to show you the third failure point. The one happening at the molecular level, right on the surface of every capillary you have left. And it changes everything about how you think about aging. What almost nobody talks about, not your doctor, not the health segment on morning television, not even most cardiologists, is the glycocalyx. Say that word once. Glycocalyx. Remember it, because this structure may be the single most overlooked factor in how your body delivers oxygen to your tissues after age 50. The glycocalyx is a microscopically thin, gel-like coating on the inside wall of every blood vessel in your body. It was first observed in 1966 by researcher John Luft using electron microscopy. He described it as a fluffy, indeterminate boundary, a mucus-like layer that sits at the exact interface where blood meets your vessel wall. For decades, nobody knew what it did. Most medical schools still barely teach it. Here is what it does. The glycocalyx controls traffic inside your capillaries. It regulates how red blood cells flow through microscopic vessels. It ensures blood distributes evenly, not flooding one capillary while leaving another dry. It mechanically senses blood flow and triggers the release of nitric oxide, which opens blood vessels and directs oxygen delivery. And critically, it physically buffers your endothelial cells, the inner lining of your vessels, from inflammatory damage. In 2018, researcher Durgin Machine and a team at the University of Utah published a study in the American Journal of Physiology, Heart and Circulatory Physiology. They found that in advanced age, in both mice and humans, the glycocalyx is significantly deteriorated. Not slightly worn, deteriorated. And this deterioration appears to begin in middle age, potentially a decade or more before traditional markers of vascular dysfunction show up on any test. When your glycocalyx degrades, 3 things happen simultaneously. First, blood flow becomes uneven. Some capillaries get flooded, others get skipped. Second, nitric oxide production drops because the glycocalyx is no longer sensing shear stress properly. Without nitric oxide, your capillaries cannot dilate in response to oxygen demand. Third, without its protective barrier, your endothelial cells are exposed to oxidative stress and inflammatory molecules that cause further damage. A vicious cycle that accelerates capillary loss. Read that again. Your body has a built-in traffic control system for oxygen delivery at the microscopic level, and it is dissolving. The glycocalyx deteriorates silently. No symptom, no lab value, no pulse oximeter reading. By the time you feel the fatigue, the brain fog, the recovery that takes days instead of hours, the damage is already deep. So the question becomes, if your body has these three failure points between your lungs and your cells, how do you actually close that gap? Here is a specific evidence-based protocol. 4 steps. Each one targets a different failure point in the oxygen delivery chain. Do not skip any of them. Step 1. Retrain your breathing to preserve carbon dioxide. Twice a day, once in the morning, once before bed, practice slow nasal breathing for 5 minutes. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Exhale through your nose for 6 seconds. That is it. The extended exhale is the key. It slows your breathing rate from the average 15 to 20 breaths per minute down to 6. This prevents excess CO2 loss, keeps your blood pH in the range where the Bohr effect works, and allows hemoglobin to release oxygen efficiently at the tissue level. Research from the Buteco Clinic International has documented improvements in tissue oxygenation with consistent slow breathing protocols in older adults. Do this on a chair, feet flat, eyes closed, no phone. Step 2. Walk for 20 minutes a day at a pace that makes conversation slightly difficult. Not strolling, not jogging. That moderate intensity zone stimulates angiogenesis, the growth of new capillaries. A 2014 study from Maastricht University confirmed that regular, moderate physical activity preserves and can partially restore capillary density in aging muscle. Your muscles send chemical signals, primarily vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, when they work hard enough to need more oxygen. Those signals tell your body to build new capillaries. Sitting cancels that signal. Walking at effort sends it. Every single day matters here. Step 3. Protect your glycocalyx. The glycocalyx is made of sugar-protein chains, glycosaminoglycans. 2 things destroy it fastest: chronic inflammation and high blood sugar spikes. Reduce processed sugar and refined carbohydrates, especially after 5 p.m. Increase foods rich in sulfated polysaccharides, seaweed, bone broth, and foods containing glucosamine. A 2010 study published in Diabetologia by Broekhuysen and colleagues at the University of Amsterdam showed that oral supplementation with sulodexide, a glycosaminoglycan compound, partially restored glycocalyx function in diabetic patients. While specific supplements are a conversation for your doctor, the dietary principle is clear. Feed the glycocalyx or watch it erode. Step 4. Cold exposure for 30 to 60 seconds at the end of your shower. Turn the water to cold. Let it hit your chest and the back of your neck. This triggers a robust nitric oxide release and forces your microcirculation to constrict, then dilate, a workout for your smallest blood vessels. Dr. Rhonda Patrick at the Salk Institute has discussed this mechanism extensively. Consistent cold exposure trains your capillaries to respond faster and more completely to oxygen demand. Start at 15 seconds. Build up. The discomfort is the signal that it is working. If even one of these steps was new to you, hit like. It tells the algorithm to show this to more people who need it. That one tap matters more than you think. Step back for a moment. Think about what is actually happening inside your body right now. Your lungs are working. Your heart is pumping. Your hemoglobin is loaded with oxygen. By every standard measure, you are fine. The machines say so. But between your arteries and your cells, in that silent microscopic space where capillaries meet tissue, where hemoglobin must let go, where a gel-like coating no thicker than a strand of spider silk decides whether blood flows evenly or chaotically, that is where your real oxygen status is determined. And nobody is measuring it. This is the truth about aging that frustrates me most. It is not dramatic. It is not one catastrophic failure. It is a slow, invisible narrowing of supply lines. Your breathing pattern shifts. your capillaries thin, your glycocalyx erodes. Each one takes a fraction of a percent away from your tissue oxygen. Multiply that by decades, and you get the fatigue, the fog, the weakness that doctors call normal aging. It is not normal. It is specific. It is mechanical. And now you understand the mechanisms behind it. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. When was the last time you felt truly energized? Not caffeinated, not stimulated, but genuinely energized from the inside. And what age were you? I will read every answer. Your blood is not your body. Saturation is not delivery. Share this with someone who has been told their oxygen is fine, but knows something is wrong. And if you have not subscribed yet, you should. What I am covering next week goes deeper into the mitochondrial side of this equation, and it connects to everything you just heard. Your cells are not asking for more oxygen in your blood. They are asking for a clear path to receive it.